You ever watch someone literally run over your livelihood and smile like they're doing you a favor? That's what Karen did with a pink ATV, no helmet, and the audacity of a raccoon in your kitchen. And before you think I'm some bitter old farmer yelling at clouds, just know this woman ripped up 2 acres of pasture and tried to sue me for emotional distress. All right, deep breath. I should probably take it back to the beginning, before I ended up on the sheriff's speed dial and half the county wanted to shake my hand. So, my name's Mitch Dalton. Born and raised right here in Thistle Creek. Population small enough that if you sneeze in church, someone brings you soup by lunch. I run a third-generation cattle operation out by Willow Bend Road. Nothing flash. A 25 head, a rusty Ford, and a stubborn border collie named Duke who listens better than most people I know. Everything was peaceful until about 8 months ago when the Henderson property next to mine sold off. Big parcel used to be hay fields, but it had been empty for years. I figured maybe another rancher bought it. Nope, it was Karen. Now I didn't know her name at first. She just showed up one day in a brand new black Escalade, wearing white jeans and sunglasses the size of cereal bowls. She waved at me like we were neighbors in a gated suburb, not folks who share a barbed wire fence and cow pies. I waved back. Polite, you know. Within a week, she'd put up 2 things, a hand-carved sign that read the Serenity Ranch. No cows, no barns, no fences, just vibes, I guess, and a prefab garage big enough to house a spaceship. 2 weeks later came the ATV. That thing was louder than a marching band in a culvert. I'd be out on my tractor, trying to seed rye, and she'd come barreling down her drive like Mad Max pink helmet, GoPro on the front, squealing like she just invented dirt. And that would have been fine if she'd stayed on her own damn land. The first time she cut across my pasture, I thought maybe she's lost. You know, maybe she doesn't understand property lines. I let it go. Second time, I waved her down. She smiled, popped her gum, and said, "Oh, I just love the view from your side. Hope you don't mind," and drove off before I could say a word. I minded. Oh, I minded. See, it wasn't just tracks in the grass. She was tearing up fescue I'd planted for winter grazing. That stuff doesn't grow back like weeds. And cows, they don't like noise, especially from something that sounds like a blender full of ball bearings. So I did the neighborly thing. I walked over, knocked on her door. She didn't answer. I left a note. 2 days later, she posted on the local Facebook group. Feeling a little bullied by the farm folk next door? Just trying to enjoy nature. 2 Hearts Country Living. I kept it cool at first. But the next weekend, I caught her cutting figure eights just 50 feet from my barn, throwing mud like a lawn sprinkler on meth. Duke barked so hard, he pulled a muscle in his leg chasing her. I shouted. She flipped me off. That's when I decided, okay, time for some recon. I pulled the game cam out of the woods, mounted it to a tree where her ATV always crept through the back end of my pasture. Sure enough, 2 days later, there she was, in full HD. Hair flying, wheels spinning, trespassing like it was a sport. I printed out stills, marked timestamps, even caught her flattening a fence post when she veered too wide. And that's about when Gary showed up. Gary's the new deputy in town. Big guy, sweet as cornbread, and still thinks people tell the truth. I handed him the photos. He scratched his head and said, "Well, Mitch, this looks pretty clear. But technically, she's got to be caught in the act. Otherwise, it's just circumstantial." Fine. Circumstantial, huh? That's when I remembered the box in my shed marked, "Camping supplies / do not step on." Now, before you clutch your pearls, I didn't bury real spikes. These were rubber-tipped metal caltrips, the kind you use to keep raccoons out of cornfields without actually hurting them. If you drive over them fast, they pop tires. Drive slow? Just an uncomfortable bump. Totally legal. Mostly harmless. But they made my point. I spread them nice and neat 2 parallel lines right at the trail where she always entered my field. And then I waited. 12 hours later, Duke barked. I stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand, and watched her come flying through the gap like a parade float on fire. Then pop, pop, pop. That pink ATV bucked like a rodeo bronc. She bailed, landed in cow poop, and screamed bloody murder. I walked out calm as a Sunday sermon. She was standing there, covered in mud, hollering about sabotage and lawsuits and emotional damage. I pointed at the NO trespassing sign she'd crashed into and said, "You do know this isn't your property, right?" She looked like she was about to bite me. Instead, she called the sheriff. Guess who showed up again? Gary. Poor guy. He took one look at her ATV, then at my setup, then at the game cam footage I'd conveniently printed and clipped to a clipboard. He sighed like a man who knew he wasn't getting to lunch on time and said, "Karen, did you know you were on Mitch's land?" Her jaw dropped like I'd insulted her poodle. "Are you seriously taking his side?" He set a trap. Gary just looked at her and said, "Ma'am, that's a warning barrier. And I see at least 5 and 0 trespassing signs from here." Now, I figured that was the end of it. She'd get a citation, maybe a fine, and leave me alone. Wrong. Karen went nuclear. First, she filed a complaint with the zoning board, said my cattle smelled aggressively rural. Then she claimed Duke was a menace and tried to have him labeled dangerous. She even went around the neighborhood trying to collect signatures to ban agricultural machinery on weekends. I kid you not. But I wasn't alone. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd rubbed the wrong way. Old man Hollister 2 miles down said she'd threatened to report his grandson for fishing too close to her property. The Wilson twins said she'd yelled at their Girl Scout stand for being too sugary. So we had a little cookout informal neighbor meeting. Shared stories. Passed around photos. Someone even brought a drone video of her spraying perfume into the creek, which might explain why the frogs were acting drunk. And that's when we made a plan. I didn't lay another trap. No, this time, I went bureaucratic. Filed an official damage report with the AG Extension Office. Sent copies to the sheriff, zoning board, and Karen herself certified mail. Then I had a land surveyor come out, mark the property lines with neon orange flags. Bright enough to see from the moon. Meanwhile, Hollister filed an EPA complaint. Wilson's petitioned the HOAs. We technically have Oneto review her ATV use. Someone even contacted the local news under a Concerned Citizens Coalition alias. Karen's response? She threw a block party with a DJ on a Tuesday and invited only people from out of town. I watched from my porch, beer in hand, while she danced under twinkle lights and gave me the finger in front of a bounce house. But I smiled because I knew what was coming. 2 days later, the sheriff came back, this time with a state rep from the Agriculture Board and a guy in a suit from the EPA. I wasn't there when they confronted her, but I did hear she tried to claim the pasture was abandoned municipal land. Yeah, good luck with that. Fast forward 3 weeks, her ATV's gone. Her sign? Taken down. And guess who's been very quiet ever since? I see her sometimes, watering a single potted plant like it's a bonsai of rage. She doesn't wave anymore. I don't mind. I got my pasture back, Duke's leg healed up, and my cows seem less jumpy. So yeah, if someone ever drives their designer ATV through your livelihood and yell, don't chase, don't fight fire with fire. Fight it with documents, cameras, and the patience of a man who's lost too many fence posts to stupidity. And hey, if you've ever had a Karen moment in your life, neighbor or not, I want to hear it. Misery loves company, and so does sweet, legal revenge.